I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing out something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike and I'm 35. I've been married to Lisa for about 6 years now. Things weren't perfect, but I believed we had a good marriage, solid, comfortable, the kind where I thought she'd never do something so sick. We met in college and she was always a little bitchy, but I liked her fire. She was clever, quick-witted, and yeah, she had a sharp tongue, but I figured that was just her personality. She was also insanely beautiful, and I thought that was a good enough reason to overlook her attitude sometimes. In the early days, everything was fine. We'd go on trips, have fun, and I never suspected anything was off. But lately, she'd started acting weird. Not just the usual busy with work excuse, though she used that one a lot. No, it was the little things that started bothering me. She'd be secretive about her phone, always keeping it close, even when I was just walking through the living room. She'd delete messages, hide her screen when she thought I was looking, and get defensive when I asked about her. I figured maybe she was just stressed or having an affair with her boss or something. I mean, that wouldn't be unheard of, right? Women like her, they can be sneaky. Then last week I found her phone lying face down on the kitchen table. I happened to pass by and saw a message pop up, something about "can't wait to see you tonight," from someone named Eric. My stomach sank. I didn't know who Eric was, but I knew it wasn't her brother or her cousin. I felt a cold sweat, and I remember standing there staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. I wanted to confront her then, but I hesitated. Instead, I kept quiet and watched her over the next couple of days. She started acting even more distant. Little things. She'd stay late at work, claiming she was finishing projects. But her phone was always in her purse, and she'd lock it when she left the room. One night, I followed her after she said she was going to pick up some groceries. She slipped out the back door and I decided to follow her. I saw her go into this guy's house, her best friend's brother, David. I didn't know what to think at first. My mind raced. I watched from a distance as she went inside. They stayed for about an hour, and when she came out, she looked flushed, like she just had sex. I could see it in her eyes. I knew then that it was more than just an affair of texts and sneaking around. Lisa was cheating on me, and she had been doing it for a while. I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. My heart was pounding, and I was sick to my stomach. I had always thought she loved me, that I was the only one she cared about. Turns out that was a lie. It's funny how you can be so sure of something, and then a single moment shatters everything. I went back home that night, shaking, trying to process what I saw. I knew I had to confront her sooner or later, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. I just kept replaying the scene in my head over and over again, wondering how I hadn't seen it coming. How long had she been messing around with David? Was I just fooling myself all these years? And then it hit me. This wasn't just about the infidelity. It was about the betrayal of everything I thought we had. My marriage, my trust, my entire life. And that's when I knew I couldn't keep pretending like everything was okay, because it was. It was a lie. And she had been lying to my face all this time. The day I finally confronted Lisa was the worst day of my life. I couldn't even sleep the night before. My mind kept racing, replaying everything I saw, the way her face looked after she came out of David's house, the way her eyes avoided mine every time I tried to talk to her. I kept thinking about how she used to say she loved me, how she'd look at me with those eyes that now seemed so empty. That moment, I knew I couldn't hold it in anymore. So I waited for her to come home from work. She was acting nervous, like she knew she was caught but was trying to act innocent. I remember standing in the doorway as she walked in, her bag hanging from her shoulder, and I just looked at her. "We need to talk," I said. Her face twisted into a fake smile, trying to brush it off. "What's wrong, Mike? You look serious." I didn't hold back. I showed her the message on her phone, the one from Eric, and then I told her what I'd seen. Her face went pale, but then she started to get bitchy, her voice rising. "Oh, so now you're spying on me. Wow, real mature. Maybe you're just paranoid, or maybe you're jealous because I don't give you what you want anymore." She looked at me with that same dismissive attitude she's always had, acting like I was the one overreacting. I wasn't buying it. I told her I'd seen her going into David's house, that I knew she'd been sleeping with him, and that I found out she'd been lying to my face all this time. That's when she started to flip out. She told me I was overreacting, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She said, maybe I just needed someone who actually cares about me, someone who appreciates me. You're just too busy with your stupid job to notice what's really going on. Her words stung worse than anything. She lied right to my face, then made it seem like I was the one who was wrong. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and disbelief. How could she do this? How could she cheat on me during my father's funeral of all times? I remember thinking, how can someone be so bitchy, so selfish? But I kept my cool, at least on the outside. Inside, I was boiling. I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I was done. Her reaction was classic Lisa, bitchy, sarcastic, trying to turn everything around. Fine, if you're so perfect, maybe you don't need me. Maybe I'll just leave and go be with David or whoever the hell he is. I don't care. She stormed out of the house, leaving me standing there, feeling numb. I'd never felt so betrayed in my life. I thought I knew her. I thought our marriage was solid. Turns out she had been lying to me the entire time, lying about everything, including how much she cared. That night I just sat alone, staring at the wall, trying to process it all. I felt like my entire world was crashing down. I started questioning everything. Was our whole marriage a lie? Did I miss the signs? Or was she just that good at pretending? I kept telling myself I deserved better, that I shouldn't let her treat me like this. But it didn't make it any easier. I was crushed, furious, and utterly heartbroken all at once. The thing that hurt the most was knowing she was capable of lying so blatantly, so easily. She's always been a bitch, quick with her sarcasm and insults, but I never thought she'd cheat. Never thought she'd do it during a time when I was vulnerable, during my father's funeral. That was the moment I realized how much she didn't care about me or anyone else but herself. And honestly, that realization made me feel sick. It's one thing to find out your wife cheats on you, but to find out she's also a complete bitch about it. That just made everything worse. I spent days trying to figure out what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to just let her get away with it. I needed a plan. A real plan. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog for days. Every time I thought about what she said, how she dismissed everything and tried to turn it around, I got more pissed. I couldn't believe how easy she lied, how she's always been so bitchy and manipulative, but this was next level. I kept asking myself, did I really know her at all? I started digging into her phone more. I needed to see everything, texts, emails, anything that could give me some clarity. I didn't want to just rely on what I saw that night. I wanted proof. I knew I had to be careful. I didn't want her to catch me snooping. I started sneaking into her purse, checking her social media accounts, and even setting up a few hidden cameras around the house when she wasn't home. I was determined to get to the truth, no matter what it took. And I found it. Over the next couple of days, I uncovered more than I bargained for. There were explicit messages, flirty, suggestive stuff almost every day. Sometimes she'd send pictures, sometimes just words, but enough to make my stomach turn. I saw photos of her and David, even one where they're together in bed, half naked. She was sending him pictures of herself, and he was doing the same. I felt sick every time I looked at them, like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just a little fling, this was an affair, a full-blown betrayal. What's worse is how she lied about everything afterward. She kept insisting she was just confused, that she needed time to figure out what she wants, and that she never meant for it to happen. Yeah, right, I saw the messages. I saw the way she talked about him, how she said she felt alive, desired, and even how she was planning to leave me for him. She's bitchy and manipulative, all right, trying to spin it in her favor. Like she was the victim here, not the one who cheated during my father's funeral. That was the moment I decided I had to do something drastic. I realized the kind of person she was, selfish, manipulative, willing to throw everything away for this David guy. I knew I couldn't stay married to someone like that, but I also knew I needed to get revenge. Not just for me, but for the way she disrespected everything we had. I started planning, coming up with a way to expose her to everyone, our friends, her family, even her boss if I had to. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to take this lying down. My plan was simple but cruel. I was going to make her pay for what she did publicly. I had photos, screen captures, and enough evidence to ruin her reputation if I wanted. I wasn't interested in just ending things quietly. I wanted her to feel the pain as much as I was. I wanted her to see that cheating and being a bitch doesn't come without consequences. And I wasn't going to stop until I made her regret it. All this was happening at a time when I felt completely shattered inside, but I kept telling myself I had to be strong. I had to show her that her lies and betrayal wouldn't go unpunished. The worst part is, I knew she'd never admit the truth willingly. She'd keep lying, keep up the act, but I had enough now. I had the proof and I was ready to strike back. I just had to wait for the right moment. The revenge was coming, and I wasn't going to hold anything back. The day I decided to execute my plan felt like stepping over a line I wasn't sure I could come back from. It was all about timing. I knew I had to be smart. I spent the next few days gathering everything I could, screenshots of her explicit messages, photos of her and David, even some recordings I managed to make when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't just some naive husband. No, I was ready to fight back hard. I started by talking to a few of her friends, people she trusted or at least pretended to. I told them I was hurt, betrayed, and that I needed their help to reveal the truth. I made sure they knew I wasn't trying to destroy her, but I wanted her to see that her lies and manipulations had consequences. To my surprise, some of them were sympathetic, and a couple even promised to help me expose her. I kept a poker face, acting like I was just trying to fix things quietly, but in reality I was planning something much darker. The night I chose to make my move, I waited until she was out, probably with David again, I guessed. I had a burner phone set up, and I was ready to send everything out. I sent the evidence to her best friend, Emily, who I knew wouldn't be happy with what her friend was doing behind her back. I also sent some of the explicit photos and messages to her work email, hoping that the shock of it all would hit her hard. Then I started posting some of the evidence anonymously on a few social media platforms, knowing it would spread fast. What I didn't expect was the immediate fallout. Within hours, Lisa's phone was blowing up with calls and messages. Her face when I confronted her the next morning was priceless: anger, panic, and a hint of that bitchy arrogance she always had. She tried to deny everything, claiming I hacked her or manipulated the evidence. She even spun a story about how I was jealous and insecure, that I was just trying to ruin her reputation because I was a bad husband. That grin she put on, that fake, bitchy smirk, was almost too much to handle. She snapped at me, saying she didn't know how all those pictures got out and that it was a conspiracy. But the truth was, everyone knew now. Her friends, her family, her coworkers, they all saw what she'd been hiding. And her reaction, she kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just some jealous asshole who couldn't handle losing control. The thing that hurt the most was how she called me paranoid, how she cried and pretended to be the victim, even as she was caught red-handed. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. Seeing her squirm, watching her try to deny it all, was somehow cathartic. But beneath it all, I was also devastated, because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about the loss of what I thought we had. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I didn't see that she was capable of this level of betrayal, how she could be so bitchy and manipulative, lying so effortlessly. I thought I knew her, but turns out I barely knew anything. The fallout was brutal. She lost her job, her friends turned against her, and her family was disgusted. I saw her crumble, and honestly, part of me felt guilty, like I'd pushed her into a corner she couldn't escape. But then again, she was the one who cheated, who lied, who did this during my father's funeral. I couldn't forgive her, not after all that. The revenge felt good, but I also realized I'd crossed a line I could never come back from. Still, I refused to be the one who got played. She had to see what her actions had caused, and she had to face the consequences. That's what I told myself anyway. Now looking back, I see how everything spiraled out of control. I never thought I'd be that guy, publicly exposing a cheating wife, watching her fall apart. But honestly, she deserved it. The way she lied, the way she used her bitchy attitude to manipulate everyone around her, it all came crashing down on her. And I was left with a hollow feeling inside, knowing I'd lost my marriage, but also knowing I'd finally taken control. I just wish I hadn't waited so long. Maybe then I wouldn't feel so empty now. After everything exploded, I thought I'd feel some relief, like finally putting an end to the nightmare. But honestly, all I felt was a deep, gnawing emptiness. Watching Lisa's reputation crumble, seeing her try to spin her lies, and knowing I had exposed her deepest secrets, part of me felt victorious. But another part felt hollow, like I'd lost a piece of myself along the way. That week was chaos. Lisa was crying, begging, trying to save what little she could of her image. She was bitchy and manipulative as ever, throwing fits and accusing me of ruining her life just because I'd betrayed her trust. She called me paranoid, said I overreacted, and even accused me of hacking her phone. She insisted she was innocent, that she never meant for things to go this far, all while hiding her tears behind a bitchy front. It was exhausting watching her try to save face, knowing she was lying through her teeth. Meanwhile, I was trying to pick up the pieces of my own shattered world. I avoided her as much as possible, but I couldn't fully escape the mess. Her family was furious, and some of our mutual friends called me to say they couldn't believe how she'd betrayed everyone. It was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, betrayal. I kept thinking about how she'd used her bitchy attitude as a weapon, how she'd lied to everyone for years. I wondered if I ever really knew her at all. Deep down, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. Part of me wanted to leave, wanted to cut ties and forget her completely. But there was also a small voice inside that said maybe I could salvage something from this mess, if she was willing to admit what she did, if she was willing to change. But looking at her now, I didn't think that was possible. She was so good at being bitchy and manipulative, even in the face of her own downfall. She'd never truly take responsibility. One night, I sat alone in the living room and stared at the phone. I'd been thinking about it for days, whether I should just pack up and leave or try to work through it. Honestly, my pride was hurt, but I also felt a strange sense of closure. I realized I didn't want to be married to someone who could betray me like that during my father's funeral of all times. That was the moment I knew I had to move on, no matter how hard it was. I couldn't keep living in her shadow, waiting for her to change. So I started making arrangements. I spoke to a lawyer, looked into getting a divorce, and started thinking about my future. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She was manipulative and bitchy, and I expected her to make things as difficult as possible. But I also knew I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't cheat on me during the worst moments of my life, someone who wouldn't lie and manipulate and call me paranoid when I uncovered her affair. It hurt, more than I can put into words. But honestly, I felt a strange sense of liberation too. Like I finally saw her true colors and accepted that this chapter was over. The betrayal cut deep, and maybe it always would, but I was ready to move forward, to rebuild my life without her. I learned a lot from this whole nightmare, about trust, about how some people are capable of profound betrayal, and about how much strength you can find when you're backed into a corner. I guess the biggest lesson for me is that some betrayals aren't just about infidelity, they're about the complete erosion of respect and honesty. And once that's gone, it's almost impossible to come back from. I don't hold any illusions anymore. I know who she really is: bitchy, manipulative, and selfish. And I know I need to focus on myself now, rather than trying to fix something that was broken a long time ago. I don't regret exposing her. In fact, I feel like I finally took control of the situation. But I also know I'll carry this pain with me for a long time. Still, I hope my story serves as a warning: trust your instincts, pay attention to the signs, and never let someone treat you like you're nothing. Because the truth is, I was blindsided, and she used her bitchy attitude to hide how much she was lying. And now I'm just trying to heal. Looking back now, I realize that the whole experience changed me in ways I never expected. I went from being a guy who thought he had it all figured out, married, stable, happy, to someone who was blindsided by the woman he loved. The betrayal was a punch to the gut, and the way she was bitchy and manipulative made it even worse. She always had a sharp tongue, but I never saw her capable of something this heinous. It's like she kept a double life hidden beneath that bitchy exterior, and I was too blind to see the real her. What's hardest to accept is how easily she lied, how she managed to convince everyone she was innocent, even as her explicit messages and photos were plastered all over social media. The fact that she cheated during my father's funeral, it's something I'll never forget. It's a moment that will haunt me forever. That's when I realized how little she cared about anyone but herself. That's when I knew I had to get out before she dragged me further into her chaos. Now, I live with the consequences. I've filed for divorce, and I'm trying to rebuild my life without her. It's not easy, but I've come to terms with the fact that some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep, and some people just aren't worth the pain. I've learned that trusting your instincts is crucial, especially when someone like Lisa is involved. She's manipulative, bitchy, and a master at lying, so I'll never let myself be blindsided like that again. I've also realized that revenge, while satisfying in the moment, doesn't bring true closure. What I really needed was to take control of my own life and walk away from the chaos. Exposing her was necessary, but it also made me see how destructive betrayal can be. I hope my story serves as a warning to anyone out there. Trust is fragile, and some people will do anything to hide their true nature. Be vigilant, pay attention to the signs, because once trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to put the pieces back together. Today, I focus on healing and moving forward. I've started therapy, reconnecting with friends, and rebuilding my confidence. The pain from her betrayal still lingers, but I refuse to let it define me. I learned that I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who truly cares. I've been through hell, but I came out the other side a little stronger. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I hope everyone reading this recognizes the importance of standing up for yourself, no matter how bitchy or manipulative the other person might be. Because sometimes the only way to reclaim your life is to cut the toxic people out, especially when they do it during your worst moments.